Hello everyone, welcome back to a special video. This is not gaming, so if you're only here for gaming, you can click off. We are just watching the game theory videos on Inscription so that I can have some personal closure and understand the story better. And you can see and listen to my reactions. So we're going to listen to it now. I'm going to turn up my audio to be higher than normal. And yeah, we will just take it from there. I'm in a full screen, I'm sorry, there we go, yeah. Okay. All right, let's see what this game's about.
Trading cards. Inside are coordinates to a secret location out in the woods. It's nearby, so you go. You dig and you find a simple white box buried under layers of soil. Inside it is a disc with mysterious words scrawled across the label, Inscription. What follows is a deadly card game where your life and the fate of the world hang in the balance. The only thing missing is a Gen 1 holographic stoat. It is, by all estimations, the best indie title of 2021. The only thing is
First off, this game value, the value it gives is not even indie. It's insane. Like, this is passion project, but also it's totally my game of the year. Yeah, it was good. It's good.
Don't play it. Seriously, don't do it. Do not play this game. Confused? Well, to understand why, let's go on a journey. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that also requires a small sacrifice to summon a few minutes of your precious watch time. Today, we're talking about the latest game to come out of the insane mind of Daniel Mullins. For those of you who aren't familiar with his work, Daniel was the brilliant game designer behind 2016's absolutely insane Pony Island. Look at that skill. I did not kill Jesus. And I've been a huge fan of his work ever since. And now his latest game, Inscription, is all over the internet, being hailed as one of, if not the best game of 2021. And I've played it. I've enjoyed it. It is fantastic. But I'm also here to tell you that you should not play it, because doing so might just doom the entire world. Sound like an over-the-top exaggeration? Well, allow me to explain. And be warned, there be spoilers ahead. As soon as you boot up the game for the first time, the story begins, but not in the way that you'd expect. We first hear a mysterious voice that says, "Okay, time to figure out what's on this thing." Then, to make things even weirder, despite having never played it before, the option for new game is grayed out. Our only option is to select continue. So we do that, and we meet a mysterious figure that greets us by saying,
"Perhaps you've forgotten how this game is played. Allow me to remind you."
Immediately, this set off theorist alarms in my head. To me, this implies that before we got a hold of the game, someone else had already begun the story, similar to what we saw recently in another game, Andy's Apple Farm. Could there be some secret lore hidden here as we piece together the mysterious backstory of the game and who played it before? I think so. What follows is a roguelike deck building game where cards were—
Before I hear any more, let me tell you what I think the game's story is, right? I think, because at the end it pops with all this confidential information is like redacted. And obviously someone figures something out. There's like a chick named Casey and she died in a fire. Yeah, I think she was killed by Game Funna. And what happened was she had taken Inscription, put it out in the woods or buried it or whatever, so no one would find this copy that has all this information on it. And they were developing this game. They decided not to make it. I don't know. She has like the last copy of it. Doesn't matter. When she dies, there's the copy. This guy finds it. And then that just sets off alarms to Game Funna because, like, okay, dude, like, we know that there's stuff in there that is, like, going to reveal what we've done. So that's why at the end, they go to his house and they kill him. As for all the weird paranormal stuff, like the fourth wall breaking and the, everything else, that I don't know. Maybe like there's ghosts trapped in the game. But if we're just purely logical perspective, that's what I would assume happened. Very straightforward. That's the only theory I have.
Require sacrifices to summon, all while this guy takes on the role of Dungeon Master, donning different masks to simulate the various characters that you encounter on your journey. Gotta say, as a theater kid, I appreciate the commitment to the bit. You play progressively more difficult rounds against each other, earning teeth via your card's attacks to add to a scale on the side of the table. Tip the scale far enough to one side, and you win. So it's a tabletop game a la Hearthstone, right? What's the big deal here? Well, if you play long enough, there is so much more lurking under the surface. First off, the cards start start talking to you, even remembering the times that you sacrificed them in battle, which is certainly off-putting and guilt-inducing, but we also gotta be honest here, if they weren't such useless cards, I wouldn't be sacrificing them as much. Stoat! And you'll be doing a lot of sacrificing because the game eventually gets real hard. In fact, there are times when it seems like the game will do everything in its power to make you fail. When that happens, you get the chance to find a death card in your next playthrough. But while most other cards are based on woodland creatures like rabbits, bats, and a sassy stoat, these death cards feature you, or at least a past iteration of you. Lose the game and the Dungeon Master Leshy uses his camera to immortalize you as a card. If you do manage to win on any given playthrough, you might think that it's suddenly time to turn the tables. This time, you're gonna be the one to pick up that camera, point it at Leshy, push the button to snap the photo, and nothing. Turns out it's not the camera that's magical, but the film that turns people into cards. The solution to this problem lies not in the heart of the cards, but rather in Leshy's cabin. See, the cards are only half the game. The other half involves us exploring the cabin where the game takes place. While you play the card game, you'll discover clues that help you to unlock and obtain special items, including another sentient card, the Stink Bug, and a Stabby Boy. Yep, as it turns out, you can bring a knife to a card fight, but the target for the knife isn't the Dungeon Master, but rather yourself. You can use the knife to pluck out one of your eyeballs, which adds a large amount of weight to the scales. Fortunately, our Dungeon Master is all about the joy of the game, and as losing an eye will diminish this joy, he actually offers you a spare from his eyeball box, which is a thing that he has just laying around.
Okay,
However,
yeah,
one of these eyes is not like the other.
Oh,
and
like
upon
PO3's
plucking it
eye.
into your head, you suddenly start to see things that you couldn't before. Messages and clues written in invisible ink which show us exactly how to open the various locks hidden throughout the cabin. This leads us to a roll of film and a third talking card, the one-eyed stunted wolf. Wonder what happened to his other eye. Oh, I get it. What's interesting is that these talking cards aren't exactly friendly to each other, let alone with our Dungeon Master. Not only that, but they change appearances throughout the game. The stoat starts to look less like a woodland weasel and more like a creature with a mechanical head. And the card that begins as a stink bug starts to take on the appearance of an old woman. It's certainly strange, but we don't have a lot of time to think about it because with our film in hand, it's time to duel. We sit down at Leshy's table one final time, proceed to the end of his board and beat him. But as we deliver the final blow, we hear a familiar voice.
Oh my, I think I just beat him!
It's the same voice from the beginning of the game. Suddenly, we're ripped out of the gameplay, revealing that what we've been seeing all along was actually just a video recording. We aren't actually playing the game, but rather we're playing as someone playing the game. This mystery voice. Man, you gotta love that about indie games. If it isn't 3 layers of meta within the first couple hours of your gameplay, are you truly playing an indie game? That voice belongs to a guy named Luke Carter, a humble card game aficionado and aspiring YouTuber. Because, of course, he wants to be a YouTuber.
Hey there, card gamers. I'm the Lucky Carter, and this is a vintage
well
pack
done.
opening
This is,
video. I've
like,
got 4 packs of...
In Inscription, I think it's very hard to pull off just recording a video at all and having it be indie and having it be like not kind of cringe and awkward. And at times it was teetering for me, but they really pulled it off, I think. Like, they definitely put a lot of effort in. And the acting part of it, he acted surprisingly well. So, he was good.
Of Inscription.
Next thing you know, he's gonna try to start a podcast and box against Floyd Mayweather. But what our little Logan Paul wannabe has in his hands is no ordinary pack of cards. Inside one of them is something unusual, a set of coordinates.
49 degrees north, 123 degrees west.
And like a true
that's where he
theorist,
finds
Luke
it.
goes and
I
visits the
forget.
coordinates on the map where he finds an old floppy disk with a simple handwritten label, bend round. Sorry,
What?
wrong creepypasta. It's actually labeled Inscription.
That's the name of the movie.
Game, actually, but you're
Oh, what
close.
the
Anyway, in the
freak?
words of
I
another
was like,
game
it actually said
franchise,
that?
some things are best left forgotten for now. Luke probably should have left that disc buried, though, because by digging it up, he starts to attract the unwanted attention of Game Funa, the game's creators. In fact, representatives start visiting his house.
Floppy disk for a game called Inscription. I was told you came by a copy of it somehow.
Also, there's no way this
Listen,
full game would fit on a
how did you know
freaking
where I
floppy
live?
disk.
Exactly.
There's no way.
And how did you get past the
Call
side
Cap.
gate? It's locked.
Like any good YouTuber, Luke films it all, except the video and audio periodically glitch, leaving the subtitles alone
That's also
to
true.
reveal
There's definitely
truth.
some paranormal things.
That's
Oh, I
binary
looked up
for
some of these.
Amanda, in
I
case
did
you
that.
were wondering. And what's Amanda
Oh,
looking
boom,
for?
baby.
Well,
I'm
that's
a
hidden in
theorist. I'm a
another
game
glitch.
theorist.
Did anyone ever play an Inscription video game?
See that? More binary.
Karnoffel
Translating it
code.
gets me the Karnoffel code, which, after a quick Google search, is just some old German card game. Now, it would be an odd Easter egg on its own, but the game actually tells us more. Or, I suppose I should say the game within the game. See, if you jump back into Inscription after defeating the Dungeon Master, you grab the camera and use the magical film that you found earlier to turn him into a card. This suddenly unlocks the New Game button that was missing from the opening menu. Now we can finally start this thing from the beginning. The real beginning. And you see, this is where things start to get real trippy because this new game is literally exactly that. A new game in a completely different graphical style. Immediately we're told about 4 characters known as the Scribes, who have different ways of creating cards. There's the old woman Grimora, who uses her quill to inscribe the epitaphs of the dead, P03, a robot who uses a particle scanner to create cards, as well as Magnificus, who used his brush to paint his wizard pupils. And if all 3 of these look familiar, well, that's because they were our 3 talking cards. The Stink Bug, the Stoat, and the Stunted Wolf from earlier on in the playthrough. How did this happen? Well, it's all thanks to the 4th scribe, Leshy, who uses his camera to capture the others just like he would use it on us at the end of each game that we lose. And just like Game Funa out in the real world, the characters in the game are also looking for something. Leshy has the Angler plumbing the depths for some long-forgotten relic. P03 has the Dredger digging through the archives, trying to find something equally ancient, something named the Old Data. We learn from this guy late in the game about this mysterious data and how it carries with it the Karnoffel code. There's that phrase again, which is apparently something like a virus, one that was responsible for giving these 4 scribes their sentience. That's right, the characters in the game are alive, or at least they want to be. When Leshy is finally defeated by the player, P03 remarks that, quote, "We would have been even sooner if the disc wasn't lost." So not only is P03 aware that he's a character in a game—
That's not what happened to me. He just came and said, "I want to see the look on your face." Huh, weird.
but he's
What
aware
does he
that
say?
they're trying to find something equally ancient, something named the card responsible for, at least they want to, if the disc wasn't lost. So by the player, P03
Maybe I skipped
remarks
this.
that,
Maybe I
quote,
did
"We would
say
have been
this.
even sooner
We would have been even sooner if the disc wasn't lost.
if the disc wasn't lost." So not only is P03
What the
aware that he's a
freak?
character in a game, but he's aware that the disc that
remember
they
that.
were on was lost out in the woods. Quote again, "Dearest Grimora, I believe P03's plot may go far past the extent of a common power grab. Indeed, this great transcendence will have catastrophic and unpredictable results." Great transcendence, you say there, Magnificus? A video game character trying to break out into real life?
Uh-oh.
What?
Uh-oh.
You don't say. Anyway, by the end of the game, P03's great transcendence is thwarted and the game Inscription gets deleted off the
I didn't think
disc.
that was what he was
Eventually,
trying to do.
all
Didn't
that
he just make a
remains
ton
is
of
you.
copies of Inscription, and he's like, "I'm gonna be the guy in every single one." Like, that's not him trying to become out of the game. That's just him trying to make more copies of the game.
And the old data,
I don't
with an
know.
NPC
But what do I
casually
know?
dropping the recommendation that you do not access it. So, you know,
Who's that? Wait, who is this?
you don't say. Anyway, by the end of the game, P03's great transcendence is thwarted and the game Inscription gets deleted off the disc. Eventually, all that remains is you and the old data, with an NPC
Oh, that's what, old data.
casually dropping the recommendation
an
that you
NPC.
do not access it. So, you know, of course I'm gonna access it. Old data begins unzipping, flooding the screen with redacted images. Whatever it is, it's enough to terrify Luke into ripping the disc from his drive and smashing it with a hammer. Speaking of Luke, he
remember
calls
that.
a journalist, hoping to expose the truth about Game Funa and the terrible secrets that
forgot
he
he
just
destroyed it.
uncovered, but he's interrupted by the
mean, I just
arrival of
wasn't- I didn't
Amanda,
forget,
who
I just
ensures
wasn't
that Luke
thinking
is
about it.
taken out before telling the rest of his story, and before reminding us to like, comment, and subscribe. So that's the base story, but there's still a lot of missing pieces here. What is the old data and how did it get onto this disc? Well, what exactly the old data is still a bit unclear, but it was clearly powerful stuff. Powerful enough to grant sentience to game entities and bring oblivion to the rest of the world. We know, based on the game's ending, that it can't be deleted. We also know it's something incriminating enough that Game Funa were willing to kill in order to get it back. And all of it is tied to a girl named Casey. You see, in Act 3 of the game, we meet a figure that offers us a rare card. One named Casey, who we're told is the creator of
Casey, not
Inscription.
Amanda.
According to the in-game dialogue, she also learned a lot
Casey
about
burned.
the old data. This
Oh,
moment
dude, I was
alone was
right.
enough to get my theorist senses a-tingling, but we actually hear mention of her 2 other
did it
times.
say about
The
the old data?
creator of Inscription. According to the in-game dialogue, she also learned
Oh,
a
she
lot about the
discovered
old
much
data.
about old
This
data,
moment
okay.
alone was enough to get my theorist senses a-tingling, but we actually hear mention of her 2 other times in the game, as a death card in part 1, as well as a person who got hit by ice in part 2's Bone Game. Luke
But then it
also
says she
stumbles
burned
across
to
her
death.
name during his investigation of the
What the
disc.
freak?
Listen, I was at your garage sale the
Fire.
other day, and they were your daughters? Would it be possible for me to speak with her? Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Her name was Casey. That's a lovely name. Sorry, what? She worked for Inscription?
And just like that, the puzzle pieces start to come together. This character, Casey, is the one who buried the game out in the woods, but something seems to have happened to her.
She died from a tree. Oh my god. Game developer Casey Hobbs died from fire-related complications.
She died in a fire, which, in a dark twist, ties directly to something that we see in the game. In part 3, a bot named Casey offers to clear up some ice that blocks a road using fire. P03 thinks that this is funny, proving just how dark and twisted this sadistic stoat robot actually is. So, based on everything that we learn about Casey, it seems like all of her actions were meant to keep the old data locked away and hidden. Because remember, it can't be deleted, not even when you have full file control. First, she buried the old data under the game Inscription in order to hide it away, with the game acting as a sort of seal. Then, she buried the physical disk out in the woods. But not only that, she found a way to soft lock Inscription so that the scribes wouldn't be able to break the seal on the old data. We know that the scribes are engaged in a perpetual turf war, constantly vying against each other for power. So, when you think about it, putting Leshy in charge was actually the smartest thing that Casey could have done. We know firsthand that just leaving the disk in a new game state would be unstable. One of the scribes would be able to make a grab for power eventually. If Grimora got control, she might use it to free herself from the pain of existence by erasing Inscription, just like we see her do during the game's ending. So she can't be trusted. P03 actually presents the opposite problem. He wants to share Inscription with the world, which is not the kind of entity you want in charge when your goal is to bury a secret in the woods and hide it. But Leshy just wants to play card games. As we saw at the start of the game, he's more than happy to exist in a perpetual loop, forever sitting in his log cabin playing tabletop cards with anyone who will drop by. In short, Leshy is the perfect soft lock, which leads us to another disturbing conclusion here. Inscription is a game where the only winning move is not playing it. By playing the game, by beating Leshy and starting a new game, Luke, and by proxy us as the player, have allowed the old data to escape. We broke the soft lock. We shattered Casey's carefully crafted seal. During the game's ending, when Inscription gets deleted, the old data is able to be unleashed, and that is our doing. Like I said at the beginning, by playing the game, we lose. We were always meant to lose. But that still leaves us with a lot of unanswered questions. Now that the old data's been unleashed, what exactly happens? When and where did the old data come from? And who is the mysterious blue man that's behind it all?
I remember that.
In the brief flashes that we get as the old data gets unleashed, we see a non-combatant certificate from the U.S. Department of Defense for someone named Barry Reginald Wilkinson, as well as a brief text exchange that mentions that he smuggled the disk out mixed in with a bunch of other blank disks. But those questions and more will have to come in a future episode because this one goes way beyond the world of just Inscription. Just when you thought that you were done with the game, there's an entire metagame that exists around it, explaining its deepest and most interesting mysteries. I told you this one had a ton of layers, so next time watch as we cover the real-world scavenger hunt that led to real people, not actors, but real gamers, hunting down an actual floppy disk that was buried out in the woods labeled Inscription.
No way.
So hit that subscribe button to get notified when that episode goes live because this is one story that's only just beginning. In the meantime, I've actually gotten kind of hungry, and as
There's no way. All right, we're going to the next episode.
finally, after many battles, you've won.
There's no way
you
they buried
defeated
an actual
the game
physical
within a
disc.
game
That's
within a game.
insane.
Your
Or
reward? A
actual
mysterious
floppy disk.
file called Old Data, but something doesn't feel right. Opening it unleashes a flood of top secret files and redacted documents, but what does it mean? Clearly, whatever was hidden here was not meant to be seen. In the brief flashes we get, we see that it's led to war, espionage. It's tied to massive government conspiracies.
I didn't
What
see any of
began
those.
as just a game suddenly transcends beyond. Suddenly the game becomes real. Should we accept this challenge? Should we try to solve the mystery? Probably not, but curiosity gets the better of us. And the clues are there. Inscription, this game within a game, has one more challenge in store for us. So let me explain to you all the game that you didn't know was there. The game that goes beyond mere digital cards and cabins. Today we reveal the deepest secret hidden in Inscription. That way, when they come for me, others will know the truth.
I hate this. I'm home alone. I hate
Hello,
this.
Internet. Welcome to Game
that kind of
Theory,
fourth
the show
wall
that
breaking.
feels like a Yu-Gi-Oh fan stuck inside of a creepypasta, because today we're continuing down the rabbit hole that is Inscription, the roguelike card game that begins as Funny Animal Goes Brrr and ends with homicidal game devs on your doorstep. I suppose you could say that this game is more than meets the eye. Get it? Because you have to shove a knife into your own eye in order to win. If you don't get that, well, chances are you haven't watched our
you
previous
gotta use
theory,
that
so
to
to
win,
kick
you're
things
bad.
off today, you should probably make a blood sacrifice over on the
I'm
subscribe
bad. I'll admit
button
I'm
so you
bad.
don't miss anything in the future, and then go and watch our previous video recapping the main story of the game. That is linked right, yeah. To briefly summarize what you need to know, Inscription
I
begins
wonder
like
if this video just gets copyrighted and taken down. It probably will. But I mean, I've seen like other people like Asmongold do like long react videos to videos like this, and they're fine. Like as long as they interject, I guess, and add their commentary, they're fine. So we'll see. We shall see.
typical card game, but slowly reveals itself to be a video captured by aspiring YouTuber Luke Carter. While opening a pack of retro cards, he discovers coordinates that lead him to a game disc buried out in the woods, Inscription, left there by one of the game's creators, Casey Hobbs, a woman who is now dead from a tragic fire. Luke's videos start to uncover conspiracy around something hidden on the disc, a mysterious file titled Old Data. By looking closely at details from the game, we learn that Inscription was made to seal away the old data because unleashing it would be too dangerous for the world. And it does appear to have powerful abilities. One piece of the old data, something called the Carnoffel Code, is able to grant sentience to the game's main characters, the scribes. But how?
Is that what the Carnoffel Code, like how does he jump to that conclusion? Oh, the Carnoffel Code is the reason that they can be sentient. And how do you even know they're sentient? What if they're just programmed to act this way, like by Casey? I don't know. I'm not buying those conclusion jumps, those logic jumps.
What exactly is this ancient power and where does it come from? Luke starts to get close to the answers, but his ARG is unfortunately cut short by the game's developer, GameFuna, who neither liked nor commented, but instead subscribed Luke to a date with the business end of a gun. And that's it. That's the game in a nutshell. Every story beat followed and deciphered, with more cliffhanger questions left for Daniel Mullins' next game to explore, I suppose. But what if I told you that wasn't the end of the game? That in this 3-act game, there's actually an Act 4. What if I told you that his next game was right in front of us all along? That's right. The entire game of Inscription is itself a cover for a much bigger game that Daniel Mullins has crafted for us. One that leads, no joke, to a real disc hidden out in the woods for us gamers to dig up. So grab your shovels, friends. It's time to dig, both literally and figuratively, into the real game that's hidden.
If he actually went this, I mean, I know he did, but that's insane that he actually planted a real. And I'm thinking, I'm like, where did he even hide the
inside of
coordinates for it in the game?
The first
That's
major
insane.
act of Inscription ends with you finding a new game icon, which allows you to, go figure, begin a new game. Only this time it's in a completely different art style from everything up to that point. When you start this new game though, the keen-eyed among you may have noticed that what we get looks like an old Windows command line, and this prompt can actually become responsive if you hit Control-C while it's on screen. By using some basic coding language, which you can figure out by using the help tool, or you just know because you're a pre-internet boomer, you can navigate into a new file directory, specifically the one at the heart of the mystery, Old Data. There, we find a log.txt file, but when attempting to decode it, the command line prompts us for a cipher. After throwing Valorant characters, that guy from The Matrix, and famous Twitch streamers at it, I got nowhere, so it's back to the game for some clues, specifically back to the guy who's been doing a lot of the legwork for us, Luke Carter. Last time when we talked about Luke's story, we were mainly focused on the videos that moved the plot forward, but there are a few others that have been broken or corrupted. These error videos are a bit of a mess, but you know that they have to be here for some reason, right? And indeed they are. If you freeze frame that, zoom in and enhance, it looks like Luke was onto something.
I got that photo on my phone.
By covering everything with post-it notes. Kinda reminds me of my office every time a new FNAF game comes out. But here we see a close-up of one of the post-it notes, which says, Mycologist 12, perhaps Bloodletter Box. Could this possibly be the cipher that we need? Going back to the command prompt, we try it and, that is a big ol' nope. However, it is a clue that'll help us find the ciphers that we need. So we start with the first section, Mycologist 12. The Mycologist is actually one of the bosses from the main game. During that fight, we encounter a card that has this really odd name, just a random assortment of numbers.
I don't remember
but
seeing
loyal
that card.
theorists will know that
I killed him too fast to see this freaking card, I feel like. Because I do not remember that card.
nothing in an ARG is ever truly random. These numbers are the first part of our cipher, but how many of them do we use? Well, it's right there in the clue, 12. The second clue, perhaps, is a lot trickier to find. In fact, it's such a generic word that you could probably link it to anything within the game itself, but that's where it gets you, because it's not actually in this game. It's really a reference to Pony Island, a previous Daniel Mullins game. In it, there was a mysterious soundbite that, when reversed, sounded like the words, a beeper, perhaps. Can that one word really be the thing that's connecting these two games? Yep, it is. If you watch the credits of Inscription closely, already a monumental task, the game credits someone for the design of Beeper. Now, to be fair, I don't know much about game development, but I don't think Beeper is a real job there. That someone is named Louis Nathis, which is weirdly similar to the name of a character from another Daniel Mullins title, Hex. Lou Natus, a man who, if you play that game, is revealed to be the CEO of Game Food.
All his games are connected, dude. He went so freaking hard.
The same company that killed off
project.
Luke in Inscription.
Yep,
it appears that we are fully immersed in the Daniel Mullins connected universe. If we look at the credit for Louis Nathis, we see what appears to be an asset link, but that URL doesn't lead to anywhere. It does, however, provide us with the next part of our cipher. After the word beeper, where perhaps would be in the phrase, we find 8339344 ? That's solution number 2. Now for the third and final clue, blood letterbox. And here, things hit a bit of a roadblock. You see, in the weeks after the game's release, the Daniel Mullins Games Discord was leading the charge and ripping through all these secrets, with Jack0_07272 consolidating it all down into a single running document. But at this point, even dedicated members of the community weren't really able to follow the clue. Instead, they had to brute force their way to find a solution. The best train of thought that I can muster up for this one is that in Act 1, there's the Bone Lord pedestal, and it requires a blood sacrifice. So we then have to interact with the Bone Lord in Act 2 and Act 3 as well. Anyway, during that Act 3 encounter,
that is new intel right there.
So we then have to
interact
with the Bone Lord in Act 2 and
I remember clicking on that, but it was like, you don't have a sacrifice.
Act 3 as
okay. Well, I missed out on some stuff.
well. Anyway, during that Act 3
What the heck? And then he's in here too?
encounter, a hint becomes
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, I just missed that. That's insane.
visible if and only if you set your screen to a letterbox format. Bone Lord 666, or at least I think that's what it's supposed to say in leet speak. I'm not the most proficient hacksaw. Anyway, that provides us our third and final code for the cipher. So going back to the command prompt, we tried to decode old data. We're asked for a cipher, we put in our 3 pieces of code and nothing. Well, almost nothing. We get part of a chat log
What the heck? Yeah, it did. Poor old Barry Wilkins. Maybe I don't need to read it. He'll
from
go
a
over
person, C, who appears to be talking about a smuggled disc, but that's about it. Clearly, there are parts of this conversation missing, and as we can plainly see, there are parts of the chat that are glitched or encoded in some way. So it looks like we're back to the solving board, friends. The first, SE167BP True, requires us to know some basic game design principles, so a huge shout out to the Daniel Mullins subreddit for this one. Basically, SE in gaming code typically stands for story events. It's how the game keeps track of progress within the save file. And fun fact, save files can be manipulated without playing. So by opening that file up in a text editor like Notepad, we can add 167
and that's why everyone did the Undertale to get all the freaking okay.
to our story events chain. The BP is definitely the more obscure one here. This one is shorthand for another variable within the save file, Bone Lord Puzzle Active. Basically a variable that keeps track of whether this skull's eyes in the cabin are glowing or not. Our hint ends with BP true, so let's set Bone Lord Puzzle Active to true. Now we load the game and immediately get a glitchy screen where the Bone Lord skull pops up, and for a brief second we see the on-screen text, I am learned too much, before the game crashes. 23K2 Floor is simultaneously really easy and also really complicated. Instead of having to alter game files, this one actually just has us going back to Luke's videos. In the video labeled October 16th, we see that Luke has 4 post-it notes under his monitor. Pig, 3K, Pig, which kind of matches that 23K2 hints. And looking at what's actually being displayed on Luke's monitor during this moment, we see that he's on the real-life Wikipedia page for the card game Karnoffel, a German game. So how do these things connect? Well, you know how people sometimes refer to the number 2 as a deuce in the context of like a dice or card game? Well, that's actually a German thing, where the 2 card is often depicted as having a hog or sow on it. That's why Luke's post-its replace the 2s with pig faces. And wouldn't you know it, but deuce, or Daus in German, is also the name of a rare creature card in Inscription, a pig with a bell.
Oh, yeah.
So if the pig is a card reference, could the other ones be as well? What about the 3 and the K? Well, 3 would probably be Mantis God. It's the only card that we find in Act 1 with that triple strike ability. And K, well, this is a card game, so could it be possibly referring to a king? Say the Rat King, maybe. By creating a deck with these cards and playing them all in this order during a card game against Leshy, suddenly the card names change, each to a different letter, S-T-O-P. P. Stop. Oh, Leshy, we've come this far. You know that telling a theorist to stop is like telling a train to stop. You can try, but it's just gonna mow you down on its way to the answers. But that's just the 3K2 stuff. Still leaves us with the second half of the code, floor. Since the first part of it was found in the game, it would make sense that it's referring to something else in the game, like the various floor textures that are found throughout. So we just need to head on over to Leshy's cabin, look down, and yeah, you can't do that. In the game, there is no looking up or down. Fortunately, YouTuber Flemonade figured this out and did an entire video where he opened up the game's asset files to find hidden numbers in various floor assets. By assembling all of them together, we get 27341, which is now added to our new cipher. Now on to the third and final clue, which is the second time that I've said that in this.
The amount of how do you even go about like he brushes over it like, oh, he found this in the game source. You have to look through every file and scan them for hidden clues. And there might not even be a hidden clue that way. Like the dedication that it takes is, I could not do it. Yeah. I'll watch it and think it's sick, but there's no way. Okay.
Video. Maybe this time it'll be true? Anyway, archive new game. We know that there's a boss character in the game called the Archivist, so maybe he's the one who's gonna help us solve it. As soon as our encounter with him begins, we hear a bunch of beeps and boops. Yep, that is definitely one that we're more than familiar with doing on our own. That's Morse code. Transcribing it all and translating it gives us big ear. That's not the only Morse code that we can find in the game either. The next part, new game, is referring specifically to the new game card. In Act 3, it's actually sealed inside of a case, but we can still see that it's glowing, pulsating, flickering, in a pattern that resembles Morse code.
No way,
Transcribing those flashes actually gives us the word no chance. So once again, armed with 3 parts of the cipher key that we got from these new
too much. Stop 27341. Big ears, no chance.
We go back to the command line and try to use these keys to decode log.txt, and boom, we've got ourselves text in Polish. Luckily, my family does speak a little bit of Polish, and it is useless in this context.
That's cap.
Yeah, my mom taught me the phrase for if the old lady isn't peeing, she's pooping when I was a kid. Yep, that is the extent of my family's knowledge of Polish, so time to hit the forums, friends. Thanks to bilingual Daniel Mullins community members, we have an English translation, giving us another part of our chat log, Character B, which reveals a conversation between 2 co-workers at Game Funa. Character B, or Mr. Kaminsky, is not particularly happy about working on this particular assignment. You know, if the amount of F-bombs that he drops weren't a dead giveaway. Mr. Kaminsky makes this whole old data stuff feel way bigger than just a company
that doesn't look like it's in the game. It looks like it was added on after the fact. I literally thought, I was like, oh, well, maybe it's in the game. Makes way more sense that he's censoring out F words.
Gotcha. Referring to things like the fate of the world and kissing the boots of the Russians, which sounds like some sort of Cold War era propaganda. On top of that, we also have Character C mentioning the name Barry Wilkinson, which, if you'll recall, is the name on the ID card that flashes up briefly when you open up the redacted files within old data at the end of the game. But who he is and what he has to do with the old data, it's still not clear. He went to prison and got back to the US eventually, but still feels like we're missing something. In fact, we're missing a third person from the chat, Person A. I mean, after all, it would be kind of strange to start a conversation with Person B, but of course, when I was scratching my head trying to figure this one out, I noticed another set of clues within the text, setting us up for yet another 3-part search, which hopefully will give us the context that we are so desperately lacking. And it's here, at this point in the script, looking back at like 7 different puzzles that we've solved already, that I wonder, should I go on? Do you want me to go on? Are you guys actually interested in all this puzzle solving? Because to me,
MATPATS doesn't do the theories in these instances. He's just piggybacking. He's like, well, this Redditor did this, and this guy discovered this. It's like MATPATS just like figures, he researches theories, and then he just says them. I know sometimes he has his own theories, or his team comes up with theories, but this, he's like, should I keep going? Come on, dude. You didn't keep going. Like, you already teased the video of people doing it, like finding it anyway, so.
Whatever. I think these puzzles are a lot of fun. This isn't just your typical swap letters out for other letters code or turn up the brightness of an image thing. This stuff is hidden deep, using everything that it can to hide our answers, like game code, save files, assets, unique scenarios within the game. It is wild how involved this thing is. And I gotta admit, I've already started looking into this 3rd batch, and it's probably the most fun batch of all. Digging deep into Daniel Mullins' other video games to find codes that have been hiding in wait for years. But for the sake of time, and honestly for the sake of the editors to get this video out, I need to stop it here. So, I gotta hear from you guys. Are you interested in hearing more? Do you...
You set up the story for freaking 2 things? No, I'm good with just that. I'm good with you just presenting all of the questions and not any of the answers. Give me a second here, though. This is taking longer than I thought, and I have a dinner to go to. Man, that was the dumbest question ever. Do you guys want to hear more? Oh my gosh. Yeah, we can send it. We can send it.
Traveling down this path for some time now. To get to this point, you've had to overcome 7 unique challenges, but now it's time to move forward by looking back. Rewinding through all the puzzles you've faced thus far, going back beyond what you even thought was the beginning, even past where you started. You're confused, but you press onward, not because you want to, but because you need to. You must uncover the secrets of the old data. Game developers, spies, even one of the most dangerous men in history have all died because of its contents. Hopefully your fate is different from theirs. Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory, where today we finish our fishing expedition through the hidden codes of Inscription. Last time we began to unravel the mystery of the old data file, the glitchy zip file that appears in the final moments of the game. A file so awful that our player character Luke Carter smashes the game disc over it. A file so valuable that the game devs Game Funa are willing to kill Luke to get it back. A file so powerful that it was able to turn the game's 4 scribes into sentient, self-aware beings. What is it? Well, the game never really says, at least directly. You see, when you start the second act of Inscription, a Windows command line appears on screen that we can interact with. However, in trying to use this to access old data, we're asked for a series of ciphers, passcodes, with each layer more cryptic and difficult to solve than the last. And so last time, our ARG puzzle solving quest began. By digging around through various game events and watching 11 minutes of credits to find a single Easter egg, we got our first cipher. But it turns out that was only step 1. We unlocked part of a chat log, but it seemed to only be one part of a 3-way conversation. Hidden inside of that was another series of clues leading to the next part of the cipher. Now we were being asked to dig deeper, editing game files, digging through asset files, finding unique card combinations to spawn almost uncanny in-game events, decoding Morse code in both the visuals and music. And we did it. There we stood, 7 puzzles deep and with another part of the chat log unlocked, but with still one chunk missing. And that was where we had to leave things off last time, leading
the game
us
blows
to
your mind,
today
but
for the final puzzles
crap
and the
also
ultimate
is equally
solution.
mind-blowing.
Fortunately, just like the last time, the last chat log left us with a series of clues hiding in the text to create a new 3-part code, one that'll hopefully give us the third and final cipher, which from there should tell us everything we need to know about the mysterious and dangerous old data. So friends, let's not waste any more time because I am not making this into a 4-parter. The first clue we have is back to beginning, so let's do just that. I went back to the start of the game and couldn't find anything. All right, well, maybe it's referring to the real start of the game once you beat Leshy and unlock new game. Nope, nothing there either. There was nothing I could find in the game that this made sense with, and that's when it dawned on me. Daniel Mullins has already hidden references to his old games as a part of this ARG, so why not take a look at his catalog? At first, I thought it might have meant his first ever game, but again, nothing there. However, when I checked out his itch.io page, something stood out. Those cards, that
make you buy
squirrel,
his
looks
other
familiar, doesn't it? It's from a game called
games.
Sacrifices Must Be Made, which, it turns out, is an early prototype for Inscription.
Oh, that's
back
cool.
to beginning, meaning like literally back to when the game's creation first started.
Really cool.
Beating Sacrifices Must Be Made causes the game to search for a file called cipher.cipher, which doesn't actually exist, so, you know, let's create one. By making a file using our previous cipher code, naming it cipher.cipher, and then beating the game, we get ourselves this, a brief reveal of the phrase, "What lies ahead?" So with that, step number 1 is done. Our second clue...
You're telling me he makes a Ludum Dare game, which is a game you confine it to, I'm only making it in a 48-hour period or something like that, and he has the forethought to go, you know what? I'm going to make this into a real game. I'm going to hide a cipher in my old game, and then when I finish the real game, you're going to come back to this game, and it'll give you the cipher. That is so much forethought, and that is so intricate and involved. I'm speechless. Like, I have no words. Also, I'm just checking on something real quick, but I cannot believe. I can't believe that. That is ridiculous. And I know I said we
Is manatee. Yeah, that one was nearly impossible to solve, so we're just gonna come back to that. Sometimes you just have to walk away and move on to a different part of the assignment. The third clue was actually a bit easier. Birchkin 5657M. The name Birchkin sounded familiar to me, but where was it from again? Birchkin. I rewatched portions of the game, and lo and behold...
Today I am opening Catch Monsters packs, and our first rare is a Birchkin.
Luke Carter's videos from the main game. Yep, it turns out that Catch Monsters isn't just a trademark neutral substitute for Pokemon. I mean, it is, but it was also the name of a Daniel Mullins game that actually failed to get funded on Kickstarter back in 2014.
It's designed for people like me who grew up playing Pokemon and still do, but are now adults and seek a richer gaming experience.
Sadly, because of this, it never made it past the prototype phase. But wait a minute, did you see that? It's a wild Birchkin. What does it mean? Downloading and playing the existing prototype, we learned that in Catch Monsters, Birchkin is associated with one very specific word, its ability, pacifism. So that's the first half of our first clue solved. But then what about the second half of it? 56 to 57M. Like meters? Like, is that an estimate of distance? Well, since the last two clues solves required us to go back to Daniel Mullins' previous games, maybe this one requires us to do it too? It does. Kinda. A bunch of Daniel Mullins' fans noticed that measuring distance was a feature in a 2018 game called Beneath the Surface, a game that Mullins had used in the past to create the secret ending of his other game, The Hex. But that's honestly a theory for another day. This game was developed by Carla51, which in itself seems to be a reference to a character from The Hex. The actual gameplay bears a striking resemblance to another Daniel Mullins game, Beneath the Ice, a game that he created at a game jam back in 2014, where the theme was, get this, Beneath the Surface. Both are simple games that involve ice fishing for items hidden at various depths, earning money from your finds, and discovering weird secrets the deeper you go. All of this, coupled with the fact that Beneath the Surface is Carla51's only game, it leads me to speculate that Carla51 may actually be an alias for Daniel Mullins himself in order to keep his ARG clues a bit more obscure. But anyway, like I said, all of this is just me speculating, and I'm getting way off track, so back to the 56 to 57 meters thing. We cast our line down in Beneath the Surface to that depth, and what we find is an old disc. Starting to notice a pattern here, but the code that we get with it is way too big to be our cipher key. So what did we do wrong? Well, nothing. We just have to realize that Beneath the Ice came from the same game jam as Sacrifices Must Be Made. To solve the clue, we need to use the cipher.cipher file from Sacrifices. So let's use the one that worked with the Back to the Beginnings clue. Nope. Didn't work. How about this other code from the ARG? Not that one either. Okay. This one from a previous cipher? Yeah! All right, now we're back in business. I was worried there for a second. Doing this unlocks the phrase, who knows what secrets are inscribed upon it. It's easy enough to read, but we only need 6 characters to solve for this part of the cipher, and once you know it, there are 6 characters in the phrase that aren't letters. 0044!3. So that is chunk number 3 solved, which brings us back to the sea cows. The manatee clue. This, to me, was the ARG's hardest challenge, and shout out to the Daniel Mullins Games Discord for helping me out with this one. I spent hours racking my brain trying to remember if there was like a manatee card that I'd missed within the game that could help me answer the clue, but alas, there was not. I went back to all his previous games on his itch.io, since that seemed to be the running theme through this chunk of clues, and again, nothing. I thought I'd checked everywhere, but the Daniel Mullins Games Discord knew that there was still one place left that no one had checked yet, the real world. That's right, one of Luke Carter's videos shows him revealing a strange set of coordinates when he opens a pack of cards.
There's a set of coordinates on this card. 49 degrees north, 123 degrees west.
Turns out if you follow the coordinates that Luke found in his pack of Inscription cards, it leads you to a forest in Vancouver. Discord users Nuts for Nuts and Memes Prey Snack actually went out to explore the area, and wouldn't you know, there was in fact a mysterious box buried at those coordinates, complete with a floppy disk inside. Man, it kind of makes me want to wander alone deep through the Canadian woods more often. Much like Luke Carter, they too had to go out wander alone deep through the
Leshy with the camera.
Canadian woods more often. Much like Luke Carter, they too had to go online to order an external floppy disk drive, which, you know, is just a pretty great moment of life imitating art. Anyway, that floppy disk contained a file named File, which just contained the words, "This guy moaned." Oof, I am not sure that I like where this one's heading. Fortunately, this was actually a name of a now deleted Reddit account that back in 2017 made a post on the Smash Up card game subreddit. Yep, 2017. Daniel Mullins was playing the long game with this one. This Reddit post contained the idea for a custom faction, the Aqua Romans. In their words, imagine if the Roman Empire was underwater. So of course, one of the custom cards in this 4-year-old Reddit post is called Manatee Antony. So we go from Manatee to Antony, or Manatee hashtag hashtag to Antony hashtag hashtag hashtag. Fun fact, Octothorpe is the official name for a hashtag. Anyway, the extra Octothorpes are there because, you know, it's still gotta fit into the cipher. Like I said, this one, nearly impossible, and worse, would have required me to fly up to frigid Vancouver in the winter, so glad to hand that off to someone else. And with that, we have our third and hopefully final cipher.
After all these years.
Oh my gosh.
Finally.
He tied it into other
So we go back
people's.
to the command line, plug this baby in, and are rewarded with yet another
there's
part
some
of our
efforts in
chat
there that
log.
makes sense
I
now.
started to piece it all together to make a full conversation, and there are still pieces missing. Are you kidding me? Haven't you ever heard of the rule of threes? One more overexcited exclamation to complete this joke? See, the chat log actually tells you what parts of the conversation go where. At the start of each section, we see a number and a letter within square brackets. These markers also appear in the middle of paragraphs within the chat log, telling us the location of the corresponding message within the conversation. But I now have responses from certain characters that don't belong anywhere. There's gotta be more. Something that allows me to fit all these pieces together. And there is, but it's physically impossible for me to solve because I was late to the party. You see, I tried looking for codes within the chat log like we'd done before, but there wasn't a single thing to be found. There was, however, a corrupt data message smack dab in the middle of the whole thing that didn't really seem to belong. Data corrupted. For any quality concerns, please contact Kaminsky Data Storage MFG, finishing with the web address for us to follow, KaminskyMFG.com. If you go to the website now, there's nothing there. It just tells you packages are on the way. However, thanks to the power of the internet, we can see that if we had tried it during the initial parts of the ARG, we would have found a site that looked like this, with a field to enter your address. Luckily, Twitch streamer Uwawa, Discord user Trollinator, and Discord user Princess Fizzy S Fire Esquire III did put their addresses in time, and they received individual floppy disks. Plus, they didn't get murdered by a rogue game creator, so bonus. Each of the 3 users was sent an incomplete file with characters missing, but combining all 3 of those files gave the following output text, some random code, and then thank you for playing, Inscription friend, the end. I mean, it's a nice little message for dedicated fans of the game, but no, it's another clue. I mean, look at it. My eyes have been trained to see these things at this point. I'm not crazy. At least this time, I'm not crazy. That layout of the second line is no coincidence. It's identical to all our other ciphers so far, and if we type that into the log.txt file from the very beginning of this whole thing, we get even more Polish text, which, again, using my mother's limited grasp of the Polish language coupled with the help of the Daniel Mullins community, gives us the finished transcript. Finally! It reads like a Reddit thread, with people commenting and replying to a document at different times. Doesn't make for the easiest of script reads, but we'll do our best.
And I, head editor Dan, will apologize now for the terrible Russian accent.
April 30th, 1945. Top secret information.
Me and my comrade Maxim took photographs of the corpse and buried it at the drop-off spot at...
This is it. This transcribed journal page reveals the very location of Herr Hitler's rotting corpse, and, more importantly, the precisely ordered deck of cards in his jacket pocket, the Karnoffel code. I cracked the encryption last night. My situation here in the USSR is delicate, but I believe this intelligence warrants an action that may blow my cover.
Yeah, it did. Poor old Barry Wilkinson was imprisoned literally hours after these words were written to the disc. He did eventually get back to the States, but I've not had any luck contacting him. There are actually a ton of Barry Wilkinsons, and it might not even be his real name.
I'm now prepared to smuggle the disc out of Moscow to West Berlin, then on Boston. The disc is carefully concealed among many blank ones.
Eureka! That explains so much, actually. I could not figure out why this disc would be tossed into a crate with a bunch of blank ones. Barry's plan to smuggle it out this way seems contrived at best, but I can't imagine the pressure he was under over there.
Idiot. Fate of the world if you take into consideration further effects and toss him into a chest with a ton of identical discs. Now we have to kiss the boots of the Russians or risk the worst outcome. I surely have better things to do than reading and reading again this top secret disc. But no, idiots from Game Funa have to finish their game. It's a cover, guys!
You too, Mr. Kaminsky. They never told us that.
No one's going to play it. Just give me a clone of Super Weasel Kid so I can go print it so an 8-foot-tall Russian doesn't come knocking on my door at 11 o'clock in the evening.
Yes, he's equally angry in person.
I believe this plan will work, and if it does not, better to lose this old data than allow the Soviets an opportunity to use it.
We are currently awaiting further instructions at the local tavern, playing a lot of Durak accompanied with a few shots of vodka.
How fitting.
Glasses, not
Indeed,
shots.
Barry, indeed.
We are full and satisfied, but about our accomplished, we won't say a word to our work today. It seems to us that we have already come to the end of such a long journey.
I have failed to change that encryption. I shouldn't even be trying. But what can I do to kill the time?
So there you have it. Finally, the real ending to this whole game. The old data is a collection of top secret documents and files, with the Karnoffel code at the core of it all. A code created from the order of the Karnoffel cards hidden on Hitler's corpse the day that he died during World War II. It sounds like the Soviets, in finding Hitler's body, managed to create a malicious piece of computer code, a combination of Cold War era computing and Nazi occultism. Barry Wilkinson managed to infiltrate the Soviet Union and stole the disk containing the data, then hid that disk in a box of blanks that ended up in the hands of Game Funa. They created Inscription to cover up the presence of the Karnoffel code located in the old data. Game Funa were just doing their patriotic duty by hiding the code deep within the game, and then they killed off Casey to tie up any loose ends once the job was done. It's still not clear how the Karnoffel code works, how some order of cards in a dictator's pocket would bring sentient to a group of computer programs, but then again, it doesn't seem like the game devs knew either. It feels like Cold War propaganda. The Soviets have it, so it must be important, so we're gonna stop them from having it because they're the bad guys. Nevertheless, we did it. After 3 videos, we solved every mystery inside of Inscription. So then, why do I feel so empty? Like something is still
Yeah, for
unfinished.
real.
Well, we have this whole chat log around this important document. We know that person A is Barry and person B is Mr. Kaminsky, but who then is person
It's
C?
Casey.
With them being the latest commenter, it means that nobody actually refers to them by name. So then why are they important to the story? Well, for our final answer, we have to explore yet another Daniel Mullins creation, the official expansion to Inscription, Casey's mod. And yes, even though it's called a mod, it is created by Dan Mullins, so it is the real deal. What this mod does is turn the game into a challenge mode of Act 1, but with a twist. If you complete enough challenges in a single run, you unlock what appears to be a devlog from none other than Casey Hobbs, the woman that worked at Game Funa, the one who buried the original Inscription disc out in the woods, the one who was burned to death in a fire. In our original theory, we believe that she was the one that put Leshy in charge to purposefully soft lock the game, thereby stopping old data from being discovered. However, these devlogs unlocked through Casey's mod actually revealed a slightly different story. So far, there are only 4 entries. The game is still technically in beta, so more may very well be on the way. But with the ones that we have already, we see how Casey's story really went. The first 2 entries show us the story of how the angler found the old data, like he was doing during Act 2, and so began walking to take it to Leshy. But Casey states that the character doesn't have a walking animation anywhere in the files. She even tries other discs, and she can't replicate it. Everything is normal on all those other copies, but when she goes back to the original copy, she discovers the 3D game that we're all familiar with Leshy in charge. So she wasn't actually the creator of it, the old data just kind of allowed all that to happen. In entries 3 and 4, she writes that she's probing other devs for information, and she finds a log from Mr. Kaminsky explaining the game to be a cover. This proves then that Casey is undoubtedly person C from the chat thread that we deciphered. She even talks about meeting him in person and him seeming off, which is also referenced in the decoded document. It was pretty clear when I met him that the guy had issues. Yes, he is equally angry in person. Now we know that Casey was a developer at Game Funa, but she, much like Luke, was just discovering the game and its secrets for the first time. Like I said, the mod is still in beta, so there's a high chance that we'll get more devlog entries and figure out how she started working on the project and what she did to end up in a fire that led to her death. If Luke is anything to go by, I'm pretty sure Game Funa may have had something to do with it. However, despite Game Funa taking such measures to try and conceal the game from the public, they failed. We're all playing it after all, so how'd that happen? Well, we find out using the finalist of final clues that was hidden back in the thank you message from the end of the ARG. Remember that random series of letters and numbers that the people who got sent the disc were able to put together? Well, that's not any normal code, that's actually a YouTube URL. In this YouTube video, we see the old data data
my
files.
gosh.
The Great Transcendence halted from upload thanks to our actions in the game. But then all of a sudden, it starts uploading again, leaving nothing on screen except a familiar face, the Stoat, looking back at us, and with a wink, the video ends. P03 did what he set out to do. He made the game, and in turn, old data and the Karnoffel code available for the whole world to see. And that, my friends, is the true final ending of Inscription. Stoat gets the last laugh, and Game Funa has a lot of houses to visit. Don't open your door to strangers, friends. But hey, it's all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Daniel Mullins is a freaking beast. Incorporating failed games into the massive treasure hunt was awesome. What still baffles me is that Pony Island Inscription overall received far more coverage by popular YouTubers than Hex did. I don't think this is called just a theory anymore. Holy crap. All right, guys. I gotta go. That took so long. But that is a story that is all put together. That's insane. I got a lot of respect for the creator. Go play the game. It's a fun game, but also what a story. It is like a little bit of a letdown. It's like, I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but it was so intricate. Like, holy crap. Okay. Wow, yeah. No, yeah, that's it. That's cool. I'm not that let down. It was pretty sick still. So, all right. I will see you guys in a real gaming video very soon.